Assalamu alaikum fam, hope you're doing well. So, there's an excellent article written by Mark Kaiser, who is a field editor, and he has these excellent elk hunting tactics. So, I highly encourage you to gain some skills outside of just regular society. Hunting is something that preserves the environment, and it's also essential to your freedom. If someone can control your food supply, you're going to end up like North Korea, being starved to death and then subjugated. Food being readily available for you helps you maintain your freedom. So let's read some of these points here that I thought were very interesting. He has some tips on elk hunting, and I found them very enlightening. So one point that he had was unique was he talked about how elevation, rugged terrain, and extraction are adversities that you'll face. So extracting the meat, so when you actually hunt it, you have to put that meat on your back and carry it, right? And if you're in rugged terrain, you're going to be going up and working out your calves. And high elevation means thinner air. You're going to have, tougher time, but you're going to get stronger though either way. Because if you train your lungs how to operate in high elevation, it really works. So what's interesting is he talks about meeting locations and how you can get around to following a herd and such. So he said around 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. elk are pretty anxious and they're goal-oriented. They're moving around kind of agitated and they're kind of noisy. So they'll move around to go to their private digs, and the hunters, he argues, should follow them. And he had this point about how herd bulls, they keep the harem together, and they move through these forests, and then they keep the satellite bulls at bay. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to get up on the high north face, usually across a major canyon and really buried deep in the thick pines and junipers. I thought that was cool because there's this company called the North Face, and I didn't know. I was like, oh, that's a cool name, but it's actually like a geographical position that allows you to see a lot. So apparently elk like to be on the north face of a mountain. So wow, pretty cool. He also said that elks are cruisers, and what that means, he says, they're long-legged and they're built for rapid, sustained escape. And so, because their legs are long, they can cover land quite easily. And they'll keep you gasping for air, but they, it's really easy for them. So he says you have to stage yourself on a north slope in a densely covered highland where you expect them to be and park for a daytime sanctuary. And then he said that your thermals carry your scent downward. So you have to put yourself in a good position for an ambush or a calling. And then there was these interesting tools of like that mimic a female elk, a cow they call them. And that there's even ones for a male that'll actually distract the elk. So I found that to be quite interesting. Around 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., he said that elk need a timeout to digest their food through regurgitation and repeated chewing. That was pretty cool to learn about. Like, they regurgitate and then re-chew it and then eat it again. I mean, what they're eating is pretty tough, right? Elk meat is delicious, by the way. If you haven't had any, there's Durham Ranch, and they have really good elk meat that they ship to your house, which is quite delicious. Basically tastes like beef, a little bit thinner, not as much fat, so you can add some beef tallow to it if you want. So he said that, when they're doing that, digesting and chewing, it's like their nap time. And he says that this type of disarray allows you to get a close shot before their pre-bedding commotion. So what's interesting about that is he mentions how bulls, that's what they call the male elk, they're busy prodding the satellite ones out of the herd, and that can make the bull run past you. So you have to kind of be ready, And, you know, that's pretty interesting. Like, you could be there waiting, and then because the dominant male elk is chasing away another elk, he might run past you, and that might be your opportunity. So you have to put yourself in a strategic location. He also mentioned how you should join their napping schedule. I thought that was interesting. So you would sleep when they sleep. Very unique. Or at least when they're calm, right? Then he mentioned how it's not uncommon for a herd bull or a satellite one to slip away from the ladies and to go by the river, and they urinate in the mud, and then they roll around in it, and it's like their cologne. It's like a scent they do. They mark their territory. That's quite strange, but what do you know? And then around 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., he said that you can get more of a closer position to the herd, and that if you do take a nap or they seem to be calming down, you can hear their wake-up call. So you have to stay alert, and you have to be evening ready to tail chase them and make sure you're within range to take a shot if they go by you. He also mentions how creek crossings, ponds, reservoirs, and other like spring areas, that's another ambush waypoint for you. He said, depending on the climate and water availability. So stationing yourself close to them on the north slope in a densely covered highland where you expect them to park for their daytime sanctuary, or by a water point, or when they are digesting their food, that's the really good spots for you. And he said that you should follow the herd in a parallel way from the downwind side. I thought that was quite interesting, because your scent, and you get a whiff of your scent, they're gonna know what's going on, you know, especially the bull elk. And he says that there's certain calls that you can do to help you ambush one for immediate execution. It was really quite interesting. He says if you know where they're headed, that's also a bonus as well. So if you scope out and you kind of know the area a little bit, you can kind of try to predict maybe where their patterns are. And if you want to get in front of them and do a bunch of calling and ambush them that way by interception, that's really a possibility as well. So you can do ambush by interception, or you can go into a strategic location and get them that way. You can position yourself close to the herd and then hear their wake-up call, or you can go along the north face. So he said the best time, though, is between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. because they're noisy, and because they're noisy, you'll be able to follow them better, right? So when they're quiet, you want to be by them when they're quiet, waiting. But when they're loud and they're making noise and they're being anxious in the morning, that is where you should, follow them. So you can also have these different calls that, can get them to you. But he does mention that you want to do this by strategic means, because you can't outrun the elk cruisers, right? They're going to keep you gasping for thin air, as he mentioned, especially the high elevation. They're built for it, whereas you're not. And as I was reading this, I just thought how amazing it is how men used to go and hunt for their families, especially me being part Cherokee. I thought to myself, isn't it amazing how men used to have to go out and really do this? It's difficult. It's really hard. I mean, now you can go to the grocery store, but it's like, imagine. So men who keep this tradition alive by paying for the hunting license, by paying certain taxes, paying for the processing, a lot of that revenue goes back in actually preserving and protecting the land. And a lot of vegan liberal atheists don't tell you that, and they kind of make every hunter seem like they're evil masochists, but it's just not the case. Hunting has been something humans have done for thousands and thousands of years, and it's only relatively newly been, the advent of, already supermarket that depends on fossil fuel distribution and, unfortunately, factory farming, which causes many more problems. So, and even soy fields wipe out the rainforest. So, no matter what crop you plant, you're wiping out the forest. So, and if you've ever seen the tractors, when they go to gather up the corn, they grind up rabbits and baby deer and all kinds of stuff. So vegans shouldn't think that they're automatically doing something the best, still. It's about good ranching practices and good hunting practices. So if you live by Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, good place for hunting, you should take some lessons, get out there. We all have to learn this. No matter where you are in the world, if you have access to some type of hunting group, you should learn it. We all should be self-reliant. It's better to be poor and self-reliant and hunting and doing this stuff than to live off the government like communists or socialists, I'd argue. So, hope you learned something. This Mark Kaiser has written a fantastic educational article, and may Allah reward him for it. He definitely has studied these animals, endured the elements, and has much knowledge to offer. So, Mashaallah, very educational.